That's okay. Sometimes these technological things don't work out the way
It's
we want
not
them
just
to.
the technology. I've been in a funk all day. I woke up in a funk. Do you ever get?
Oh
Yeah,
no. There's a lot of energy swirling around the planet right now, so that's understandable.
yeah. I think I didn't have enough sleep, and I just could really have done with that extra hour.
I totally understand that. I got up at 4 a.m. this morning so that I could shower and look like a decent
Be
human.
beautiful, goddess like. Woo!
Thank you. I am usually up at this time. I'm just not showered with makeup on, so it's a big deal.
Wow, what an achievement!
It really is. I'm not gonna lie. When you have an almost 5-year-old too, like showering and putting makeup on and even putting clothes on, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I hear you. Certainly, I'm not. I'm not at the level of getting up at 4 right now.
that's my that's like my only time that I have to myself, you know. So I used to complain a lot about not having time for myself, and then one of our coaches, Alana Lee, said, well, then make time. And I went, oh, okay.
So we
So
we
that's how I make time.
connected for a long time without ever seeing each other's faces, which is funny.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like that's the same way. Like I'm really close to a couple other the girls from our group, Jessica and Sarah. I live with Alana, so I kind of like cheated with her, but um, but I've never met anybody in person. But we used to laugh because I used to say I feel like you guys have been my best friends for years. You
I
know, we
know,
were
right?
so close. We just connected right away. It was like such a heart connection immediately, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
and we gave each other so much support with the accountability group.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
And we formed it so randomly. Like it just was like, who wants to do this? We want to do this. And then we all just came together and started to support each other without really knowing anything about anyone. So yeah, that was
It was
great.
insane.
Yeah.
Who's this cuddly person in the background?
Oh, this is my stuffed animal. My almost 5-year-old has a bajillion stuffed animals. And when she goes to her dad's house, I miss her because she's not in bed with me. And so we each have a stuffed animal. She has a big purple bunny, and I have this one, and we put them against our heart chakras, and we put all of our love into the other ones. So she put all of her love in here, and I put all of my love in hers. So she takes hers, and I get this one to cuddle with at night because we miss each
Oh,
other.
that's adorable. I need to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, when my ex and I separated, you know, it was difficult on her, even though him and I have a great relationship, we're really close. But it was difficult from her going from her whole life of having mom and dad there to us separating and living in separate households. And so we needed like something for her to have in both places. This is my cat. I have two of them. They're going to probably be like, oh, what's going on? And right in here.
So what was
So
it about the goddess post or that kind of attracted your attention? What did you connect with?
that's a very big question for me. I I feel like I was a born feminist.
Mm,
And I say born because I feel like it's in my bones.
mm,
And so I naturally kind of gravitate towards femininity and the goddess anyways.
mm,
And I wouldn't necessarily say that my mom considers herself a feminist. I think she's a lover of the divine feminine. My mom's a master crystal Reiki master, and she does all sorts of energy healing and body work, and she's such a Zen Buddhist. Like she's so calm, and she's so like intellectual, and she just carries herself in such a way. And I'm the opposite. I'm the like super over emotional, in your face, like really aggressive about my opinions, you know, like I'm just like, we're polar opposites, and we're really close. We're just completely opposite. But the one thing that I think that she gave me was my love for the divine feminine. And That's not the only thing. There's lots of things.
So growing up,
But
did you actually talk about the divine feminine, or is it something that kind of penny dropped later on?
um I feel like it was something that was always there in my life. Like, it was something my mom talked about. It wasn't anything she preached. It was just something that was part of her life. And
Mm.
so I kind of always heard about it because she was in it and it was a big part of her. And so, I think as a child, I just wanted to run around and play. I didn't care. I just wanted to go outside and like be in nature. And that was kind of like my way with connecting with the goddess, is like, I loved being outside. I get super claustrophobic when I have to be inside all the time. Like, I could never be a person who like is a hermit, because I have to be outside. I have to have fresh air. I have to have trees. There has to be water next to me. Like, I have to have that in my life. And I think that that was my way as a child of connecting with the goddess in a sense. Like, I'm not even sure that I was aware that I was really doing it. It was just something that kind of like came to me. And
So what terminology did your mom use around it?
that's a good question. I don't really remember, like, as a child, what she said. As an adult, we definitely discuss it in a much more in depth, because we can have those kinds of conversations now. um, I don't remember exactly like what terminology she used. And when I was 13, she started practicing Reiki. Crystals I feel like had always kind of been around our house, but Reiki was something she started practicing when I was about 13. Um, and she would just like do Reiki on our cats and on our plants and on us, like when we got sick. And then she kind of started working with crystals within her Reiki, and she got these stones. I'm trying to remember what they're called, the crystals of light, I think. And they're a set, they're specifically attuned to her energy. And and
Wow.
so that was when I was in like my early 20s. And so, my teenage years, it was like boys, and hanging out with my girlfriends and partying and drinking. So like I didn't really like connect in my 16 to 20-ish. And when I was 21, I became a drug addict. So I was highly addicted to cocaine for a year, and I almost killed myself. And when I came back from it, well, first of all, I remember sitting in a hospital and a doctor looking at me and saying, "You can continue doing this, and you can die literally in the next few months, or you can stop and you can decide what you want to do with your life." And he asked me like, "What is it that you want?" And I said, "I need to think about it. I don't know." And he left. And when he came back into the room, I want to say like 10 or 15 minutes later, I in my head was going to say, "I don't need to be here anymore. I didn't have any purpose in my life. I had no idea what I was doing with myself." And and then what came out of my mouth was, "I'm here for a purpose and I need to stay." And
Mm.
I remember even in that moment being like, "What? That wasn't even me." Like, something took over me in that moment and said that to him. And I was like, I remember having this moment of like, "Holy crap, what was that?" And
Wow.
and so I did. I left the hospital. I went home. I was living with a girlfriend at the time, and I flushed everything I had down the toilet. And I started dating my best friend, who was my husband. He was my best friend for 5 years before we dated. So we had been best friends for about 5 years at that point, and then we started dating right about the same time that this happened. And my mom started taking me to a church in Los Angeles called Agape. And it's really a non-denominational spiritual center.
Mhm.
Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith was the pastor, and a reverend, and you know him if you've seen movies like The Secret, or read. He has tons of books. You can look him up. Anyways, he was the reverend of the spiritual center.
Okay.
And I remember the very first day, yeah, that I went, he got up on stage. I remember because I had so much guilt and shame around what I had done. I was just like all my friends are in college, everyone's like getting degrees and doing things with their lives, and I was a drug addict, you know. And I remember just feeling so much shame and guilt around that. And he stood up on that stage that very first day that I ever went. I had no idea what I was getting into. My mom just took me. And he said, "What exactly is the purpose of shame and guilt? What does it give you? Like, what do you get out of it?" and like the whole crowd was just silent. Like no one could say anything. And he's like, you're right, because it does nothing. It literally serves no purpose in your life. And from that day forward, I was like, oh, okay, well, if I don't need the shame and this guilt, and I don't need to hold on to that because it's not going to do anything for me, then what exactly is it that I need to do with my life? And my mom helped me really find my purpose. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it's just one purpose. I just think that that whole kind of series of events led to me diving really deep into the goddess, because what happened was I had to find my way back to myself. And in order to figure out who that was, I was kind of discovering that for the first time, to be honest. I mean, I didn't really know who I was as a teenager, you know, and I was 22 at this point and freshly off the drug train. And it took me on a really, really long journey. 13 years later, I'm 35 now. And it took me down this road of discovering like what it meant to be a woman, what it meant to be me, what it meant to be a woman in the world right now, and how I wanted to show up and how I wanted to present myself. And then especially when I had my daughter, you know, it was like, what kind of example do I want to give her as a woman, you know, and what do I want to teach her, you know? And so that my journey is never complete, let's just say that, but for right now, that's where I've gotten to.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. That's just an incredible story.
Yeah.
Wow. So what is the connection for you between the goddess and feminism? I know it sounds obvious, but like, is there a link there for you?
Actually, you know, no, that's a really good question. And I don't think it's that obvious. I think feminism is different for everyone. I know that there are hardcore feminists out there that are, you know, want the women to rule the world, right? And like everything woman and feminine. And I kind of find myself teetering in the middle, because I do believe that the world needs to find its way back to the feminine. The world was feminine led at one point for hundreds of thousands of years. And, you know, in the current situation that we're in, I do think that more femininity and the gentleness and the ease and the grace of the feminine could only help at this point. But, you know, I have some really fantastic men in my life, and I have men who, like my dad worships my mom. Like he treats her like a goddess. And my dad is my stepdad. He's been my dad since I was 7. And I consider him my dad because my biological father was the opposite. He was an alcoholic, and he was a drug addict, and, you know, he was abusive. And, you know, I got the majority of that because my brother was 4 years younger than me, and my mom left when I was 5. So my brother was only a year old. He doesn't really remember most of it. But that was kind of my first example of men in my life. And then it got switched to this like completely opposite man, who my mom, you know, like she dated guys in between then. And my dad actually like literally had to chase her. Like he asked her out a number of times and she was like, I'm good. And then because she had been turned down so many times because of me and my brother, she was 24 when she had me and 28 when she had him. And so by the time she was 30, you know, she had 2 kids, 2 toddlers pretty much. And most guys didn't want that. They didn't want a woman coming with two kids. That was too much baggage for 30 years old, you know? And so I just remember her, like, I remember watching her and talking to her about it. And so then having my dad kind of come into the picture, and being this guy who was an only child, who was raised by his grandmother, and then just walk into a situation with 2 little kids, and and like completely show up for my mom. You know, he was a musician. He had a record contract. He was going to go on tour. You know, like him and his band were going to go on tour. They were on VH1 at the time. Like his career was actually taking off, and he quit to stay home and take care of my mom and me and my brother.
Wow.
Which, like, he didn't need to do that. You know, I don't know what would have happened if he had left. He may have still been with my mom, who knows? But he stayed there, and he gave up his career and essentially part of his life to raise these two kids that weren't even biologically his, you know, and he stayed through all of the things that my brother and I put him through. And let me just tell you, we put him through a lot as teenagers. So to have a man like that in my life is such the polar opposite of the one that actually like was part of birthing me. But that was the example I got growing up. You know, he makes my mom's breakfast. He goes and gets her car in the morning because they live in a townhouse and she has to like drive down the street. He will make her breakfast, and before she goes to work in the morning, he will go get her car and pull it up to the front of their house. Like, who does that? You know?
So what is that telling you about either feminism or the divine feminine? I mean, what is that embodying? Because it's really embodying something amazing for you.
Yeah, well, for me, it's like, I think people think that feminists are hardcore women who only want other women in the world. And it's like, there's a polarity, there's a balance. There needs to be the masculine and the feminine. And there's a lot of feminine in men, and there's a lot of masculinity in women.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the balance. That's what really needs to happen. If every single person on the planet was to focus on their own balance of feminine and masculine, then I feel like, and this is just my opinion, but I feel like the world would be such a better place, like being fully balanced like that, you know? And I think that when people say the divine feminine or the goddess, it's like somehow men can't partake in that. And that doesn't feel right to me. I love
the way you're talking about your stepdad who came in and is kind of embodying the divine feminine in he's kind of like treasuring the feminine, treasuring your mom's feminine. Mm-hmm. And also he's got that softness in himself. Is that what you're trying to get across?
He does.
Yeah.
In fact, I wish I had pictures of him and my mom. Like, my mom's such a hippie. She wears like long flowy shirts, right? And like all the colors. And my dad will just put them on and wear them because he just doesn't care. You know, like whatever's comfortable for him, he'll wear. So a lot of times he'll wear like these long flowy, like, you know, tie-dye shirts and stuff because he just doesn't care. And my mom had to be so masculine for a while. She was a single parent. So she had to be like the man and the woman. She had to provide for the family. She had to work all the time. You know, she had to come home and be the parent. So she had to do all those things. And when my dad stepped in, it was like she was able to share some of that with him. And then she was able to kind of find her way back to her femininity and allow herself to be taken care of, you know, because my dad loves to take care of her. And so it's like she had to let that happen, you know, in order for her to find her way back too. And I grew up extremely masculine. I have always been independent. I've always done things on my own. I've always made my own money. And, you know, when I was in a relationship with my ex for 13 years. We were married for 5, but together for 13. And, you know, I really struggled allowing him to take care of me. You know, it was genuinely like, it was a very uncomfortable feeling for me. And so part of my journey has been really discovering like why that was so difficult for me, why I had such a hard time just allowing myself. And it's not that like taking care of you is the only thing that men do. It was just, for me, that was what was the issue. That was what showed up for me.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be in a relationship, if you're going to be in any kind of relationship, there has to be some kind of softening. Otherwise it's just kind of two people woodenly standing like, there has to be kind of this way that we become a unit. And so there has to be some give and some take.
Yeah, absolutely.
I personally have not found that easy at times.
But when you think about it, women in the world today are taught to be masculine because they're taught to stand on their own 2 feet and make their own money and pay for things on their own because they don't need a man. Who needs a man, right? But it's like, it's not about that. It's good. to be able to stand on your own and to be able to pay for your own bills and support yourself and do all the things. But we need human connection, whether it's like a woman and a woman in a relationship, or a man and a man in a relationship, or a woman and a man in a relationship. There's still that duality there.
Yeah.
There still needs to be the feminine and the masculine from both sides. You know, there needs to be one taking care of the other, and then the other one taking care of the other. You know, it's like giving from a full cup, you know, not being able, you can't give anything when you're empty, when you've got nothing to give.
Yeah, it's
So
great that there's no longer the kind of mindset that the man has to kind of do all the like warlike things and go out and kind of kill animals, and the woman has to stay at home and look after the kids. And
the food.
That model's broken now.
Yeah.
So we're kind of finding a new model which involves both of us doing or all of us doing some kind of mixture of the two, and that's actually really healthy.
Yeah, my ex used to joke that him and I basically, like, when we ended our relationship, we went back to being best friends. So we like still talk to each other every single day and laugh all the time because he makes me laugh so much. But we used to joke that he wanted me to be the one to go to work. He wanted to be a kept man. He was like, I'll stay home and do the dishes and clean the house and take care of Freya. You can go to work and make all the money. And I was like, great. You know, it was like, it was just such a nice way to have that dynamic. You know, it's like, and there are times as a woman that I want a man to like hold me and make me feel safe, you know, and I want to be that very soft, gentle, feminine type. And I want to feel taken care of. And then there's other aspects of my personality where I can rise to an occasion and I can kick ass and I can be in your face.
Get up at 4 a.m.
Right? And I'm mama bear and like, don't fuck with me, right? Like I have both of those aspects of me, and that's okay. I think that was the thing for me too. And I can't speak for anyone else except for myself, but for me, that like being okay with both sides of that was really big for me. I needed to find out what that meant in order to feel comfortable having those moments of being soft and gentle and not feeling like I was being weak. And then having those moments of being able to be strong and being in my power and like stand up for what I believe in and not be called a bitch or whatever you want to say. You know, it's like, if people are going to say that, they're going to say it. I can't stop them from saying it, but I needed to be okay with hearing it and knowing that it didn't mean anything for me. And so finding that balance was, I think, what really pulled things together for me. So
wow. That's pretty amazing insight.
Thank you. It's still a lifelong journey. It's not perfect.
Yeah, I don't feel I found the perfect balance yet. I'm still definitely on the path.
Yeah. And I've been single for a little while, and so it's funny because I was 22 when we got together, so I like almost forgot. You know, you forget like when you have someone there for so long and then you go back to being single. And even though we're on great terms, we talk all the time, like he's not there to like fix things in the house for me or like do stuff anymore, you know? And so I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta remember how to figure all this stuff out. Right. And it's good because it's a good practice for me to find my balance again of like, okay, now as a single parent and a single woman, like what does it mean for me to be that gentle, soft version of myself for my daughter, and then also show her what it's like to like, you know, fix the toilet if I need to, you know? And so I think that it's a lifelong journey because, you know, who knows, I may find another life partner in this life and then I'll have to get back into the habit of like, you know, that
back again,
that balance. Yeah.
I used to have issues because my husband would go away a lot for work. And so he would sometimes when my son was really little, he would go away for like 4 or 5 days every 2 weeks. And so I would be kind of constantly flipping back and forth between holding the whole space and having someone else in my space. And it just drove me crazy. And what was much easier was when he did longer stays away and then longer stays with us. And that really changed things.
Yeah, that actually happened with Eric too. Yeah,
Right.
Eric's an artist, and so during the summer he travels, he does art shows. So he would be gone for like 2 weeks to a month at a time.
Yeah.
And then he would come back. And
He's like, who are you and what are you
I
doing
know,
in my space?
I used to joke, I'm like, we just got a rhythm down. Can you like go again? Her and I just got this thing going, man. The house is clean. All the dishes are done. There's no dirty shoes at the front door. Like, we got a thing going here, you know? So I totally understand. Yeah, it was a back and forth, because then during winter time, he'd be here because he worked up at the ski valley, but he'd be gone for 12 hours a day, right? So it was like, we wouldn't even see him in the morning, but he'd come home for dinner. So we really only got him at dinner time and like maybe on the weekends. But it was, yeah, it's interesting to have that back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose we're constantly required to change our balance of masculine and feminine. And that can be actually an effort.
Yeah. It is. It definitely is, especially because, you know, I have trouble switching gears like that during the day. Like, I get up so early in the morning to like get my own work done and do my own stuff and read a book and make tea and like have quiet time by myself. And then my daughter wakes up and I have to like switch gear into like mom mode. Right. And I have trouble sometimes going between
Yeah.
like getting all the things done and then like being present with her. So I think even like switching that gear sometimes can be challenging, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I can be a really kind of angry force if I'm like interrupted halfway through my meditation or something.
oh
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I was here. This was my time.
Oh yeah, and my kid doesn't care at all. She's like, yeah, that's a nice story, but I need something.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes, I'll give you a funny story. Yesterday, I set a reminder on my phone to take 3 deep breaths.
Yeah.
And I was sitting at the tea table with the whole family. And I was like, oh no, I forgot to do my 3 deep breaths. So I start on my 3 deep breaths. And when I get to the 3rd breath, my son hits me over the head with a stuffed animal. And
Just to make sure you were really in that zone, he had to make sure. That's, you know what's so funny is I take deep breaths like that too. Like when Freya says something to me, I don't even respond. I just go, right? And I do like 3. And so the other day I was like freaking out about something where I was just like, oh my God, right? And she's like, mom, stop, take your deep breaths.
Oh, that's really good when they can do that.
And I was like, okay, obviously I'm setting somewhat of a good example here, because she
That's
knows
really
when I get like this to take a deep breath, right? Yeah, I know. Our kids are the best teachers. I swear, my kids taught me more than anything else in life.
So good. It's like having a little reminder kind of already set.
Just hitting you over the head.
Wake up, enlightenment.
Absolutely. Just in case you forgot, we're still here. Oh God. Yeah, I should probably hit myself with that stuffed animal at some point just to remind me that I still have a kid.
I better let you go and get on with your day.
That's okay. I actually really enjoy having these conversations. So thank you for inviting me, because it's very, very special for me to talk about my relationship with the feminine and with goddess, you know. In fact, here, I'll show you. This is the centerpiece of my every altar I've ever had.
Wow.
And I don't know how closely you can see this, but her hair has all sorts of flowers
Ooh.
and creatures that fly. And then she has things that look like almost like tattoos on her arms and her legs. And so her legs have animals from the ocean, and her arms have trees, and her hair is like leaves and branches. And then her pregnant belly is the world, basically.
Yeah. Wow.
And I just felt like this for me is the most perfect embodiment of a visual for me for what the goddess is. And I resonate a lot with Gaia, Pachamama, for that reason, because I connect so deeply to her. and that's like effortless for me. That's like something, it's like breathing for me, you know. And my daughter, her name is Freya, and she's a Norse goddess.
Yeah.
And she's a goddess, and she's the goddess of life and death and rebirth and sexuality and war. And
Perfect.
and I have had people ask me, like, why would you name your daughter after a goddess like that? And I said, because she's fucking powerful.
Yeah.
And I want my kid to grow up and be a force to be reckoned with, you know. And also, I don't think I named her. I think she named herself. Because I had never even heard the name Freya before I found out I was pregnant. And then as soon as I found out, I saw the name 3 different times within the first 2 weeks of finding out I was pregnant. And I was like, oh, yeah. And so I genuinely believe that she named herself. And I think that was her way of just telling me, like, that the embodiment she came through. And you can't see this, but that my whole arm is a tattoo of Freya, the goddess. And so I have her, and on the inside of my arm I have a raven and a wolf, which are her animals that are her concubines that she's always seen pictured with, and a cat, which is why I have cats.
Wow.
Because I connect so deeply with that too. So the goddess, you know, in all aspects is very big in my life. So I love this conversation, and I love that you're doing this.
Oh, thank
And,
you so much.
if you
Yeah,
ever
thank you for
extend it,
sharing so openly and so willingly, because
yeah,
you know it really means a lot to me. Like,
of
having
course.
been so obsessed with this stuff over so many years, but never
Yeah.
actually finding people in my circle that really resonated with it. And like, am I
Oh,
going crazy? Like, what is going on for me?
no. You're not crazy in the slightest.
Yeah, yeah. And
If I could walk you around this room, you would see I've got goddess photos everywhere. I've got books about witchcraft and the goddess everywhere. That's the other thing too. I study witchcraft because when I was in school getting my degree in metaphysical sciences, they had a course, a very basic, like, introduction course into the heritage of witchcraft and what that word and what that actually means. And it's the polar opposite of what you see on TV and in movies and the scary stuff that people make it out to be. And it has to do with the earth and with connecting in your own special way with the goddess. And so part of my path right now is really reclaiming that word and the terminology of witchcraft and what that means. And hopefully in the very near future, I'll be launching my own YouTube channel talking about all things crystals, witchcraft, goddess, feminine,
wow.
all the things.
Yay.
So I'll let you know.
Awesome. That's so
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah, amazing sharing. And yeah, the name Gaia was just popping into my head every time you were speaking. It's like, yeah, this is kind of earth goddess
Yeah, very much
territory.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wonderful.
definitely. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. I had such a good time.
Yeah, let's chat again as well.
Okay. We'll
Okay.
make it a series.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Okay, honey. Bye.